horribly plebeian. Lily, in fact, enjoyed a glass of wine, but when she was with Salvatore, she wasn't Lily. She was Denise Morel, and Denise drank only coffee or bottled water. Salvatore chuckled and said,
"We shall see."
He did, however, order coffee for her. This was her third date with Salvatore. From the beginning, she had played it cooler than he wanted, refusing him the first 2 times he'd asked her out. That had been a calculated risk, one designed to allay his caution. Salvatore was accustomed to people seeking his attention, his favor. He wasn't accustomed at all to being turned down. Her seeming lack of interest in him had piqued his own interest, because that was the thing about powerful people. They expected others to pay attention to them. She also refused to cater to his tastes, as in the wine. On their 2 previous dates, he had tried to cajole her into tasting his wine, and she had adamantly refused. He had never before been with a woman who didn't automatically try to please him, and he was intrigued by her aloofness. She hated being with him, hated having to smile at him, chat with him, endure even his most casual touch. For the most part, she'd managed to control her grief, forcing herself to concentrate on her course of action, but sometimes she was so sick with anger and pain that it was all she could do not to attack him with her bare hands. She'd have shot him if she could, but his protection was excellent. She was routinely searched before being allowed anywhere near him. Even their first 2 meetings had been at social occasions where all the guests were searched beforehand. Salvatore never got into a car in the open. His driver always pulled under a protected portico for him to enter, and he never went anywhere that required him to make an unprotected exit from the vehicle. If such an exit wasn't possible, then he didn't go. Lily thought he must have a secure, secret exit from his house here in Paris, so that he could move about without anyone knowing, but if he did, she hadn't spotted it yet. This restaurant was his favorite because it had a private covered entrance that most of the patrons used. The establishment was also exclusive. The waiting list was long and mostly ignored. The diners here paid well for a place that was familiar and safe, and the manager went to some lengths to ensure that safety. There were no tables by the front windows. Instead, there were banks of flowers. Brick columns throughout the dining floor broke up the space, interfering with any direct line of sight through the windows. The effect was both cozy and expensive. An army of black-suited waiters wove in and out among the tables, topping off wine glasses, emptying ashtrays, scraping away crumbs, and generally fulfilling every wish before most of them were even voiced. Outside, the street was lined with cars that had reinforced steel doors, bulletproof glass, and armored bottoms. Inside the cars were armed bodyguards who zealously watched the street and the windows of the neighboring buildings for any threat, real or otherwise. The easiest way to take out this restaurant and all its infamous patrons would be with a guided missile. Anything short of that would depend on luck, and at best be unpredictable. Unfortunately, she didn't have a guided missile. The poison was in the Bordeaux that would shortly be served, and it was so potent that even half a glass of the wine would be deadly. The manager had gone to extraordinary lengths to procure this wine for Salvatore, but Lily had gone to extraordinary lengths to get her hands on it first and arrange for it to come to Monsieur Durand's notice. Once she had known she and Salvatore were coming here for dinner, she had let the bottle be delivered. Salvatore would try to cajole her into sharing the wine with him, but he wouldn't really expect her to do so. He probably would expect her to share his bed tonight, but he was destined to be disappointed once again. Her hatred was so strong she had barely been able to force herself to let him kiss her and accept his touch with some warmth. There was no way in hell she could let him do more than that. Besides, she didn't want to be with him when the poison began to act, which should be between 4 to 8 hours after ingestion if Dr. Spear was right in his estimation. During that time, she would be busy getting out of the country. By the time Salvatore knew anything was wrong, it would be too late. The poison would already have done most of its damage, shutting down his kidneys, his liver, affecting his heart. He would